Hello everyone, I'm Victoria Heron and I'm hosting the webinar today, and I think we'll just wait a couple of seconds to see that everyone's coming in and has a chance to come in. I hope you're all well wherever you are. Okay, let's begin. We'll stick to time if we can. I'm Victoria Heron. I'm MSM's Executive Director for Australia and New Zealand. And I'd like to welcome you to this information session. I'd like to begin with something that we do in Australia very, very frequently, and that is acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we are meeting, wherever it may be for you. For me, it is the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I acknowledge their elders past, present and emerging. Our session today will run for approximately 45 minutes with 15 minutes for questions and at the end. If you have any questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat box or the Q&A box and we can address them at the end. I am MSM's Executive Director in Australia and New Zealand. My career in international education spans some 19 years now, I'm nudging, I think, in the public and private sectors, specialising in global marketing and recruitment, student mobility, English language, executive management and operations. MSM is an international education services company headquartered in Canada, which aims to help institutions build sustainable student recruitment growth in their target markets, achieve solid and consistent conversion rates, and support student retention by delivering quality and genuine students. Today, we are presenting information about MSM's in-country office model for institutions. It's a performance-based and sustainable student recruitment growth solution. Our speakers will share why this model delivers cost-effective, sustainable growth in key and emerging markets, the structure of the in-country office and the end-to-end pipeline management, agent management, and additional services and resources available through MSM's own global presence. So I'd like to begin by introducing you to our panelists today. I welcome firstly Professor Ray Priest, who is International Director of Asia Pacific for the University of the West of England, or UWE as it is affectionately known. After 18 years as a secondary school and community college principal in the UK, he joined the University of the West of England in 2010. Shortly after joining UWE, he relocated to Thailand, where he now leads the university's international development in the Asia Pacific. And he was also appointed as the Managing Director of UWE International Educational Services. So welcome, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victoria. Hello to everyone.
Please meet Suneetha Qureshi, President of MSM Global. Suneetha has more than a decade of experience in international education, is based in India and leads MSM's extensive back-of-house operations, including MSM's human resources, financial management, IT, marketing and communications, and social media. Sunita has led the development of the in-country office model for MSM and has successfully launched the representative offices in Asia and Africa for many North American and European higher education institutions. Hi, Sunita, great to see you.
Hello, thank you, Victoria, and good morning, good evening. Welcome, everyone.
And finally, please meet Erez Van Ham. Erez is the Chief Growth Officer for MSM Canada and MSM Higher Ed Global. He leads the business development efforts across three verticals, the MSM in-country office model, MSM Unified and MSM Higher Ed. Erez is a solutions-oriented senior leader with over 20 years experience. He has led teams in developing partnerships and markets, strategy and business operations, and financial planning and analysis. Hi, Erez, and welcome.
Thank you, Victoria. Nice to be on this panel, and welcome to everyone who's just joined. I have to say thank you, first of all, for organizing this, Victoria, and giving me an excuse to actually put on a dress shirt.
I'm glad I could help. We're going to start with some questions for our panelists, and this is really, as I said, about explaining what the MSM in-country office model is and how it works and how it can really significantly support your institution's student recruitment. So let me begin with Erez. Erez, can you just please describe the MSM in-country office model?
Sure. It's a pretty simple model, actually. What we do is we have an option for institutions to have support and dedicated resources in source markets around the world 365 days a year. So we provide your recruitment representatives, we provide your admissions staff, we provide audit and compliance services and marketing and promotions and brand building. And we go to high school visits on your behalf and to edu fairs all over the country. We are your representatives on the ground. And it's an innovative model because we do all this based on a performance-based model. And so there's no upfront fee, there's no recurring fee. And so it really de-risks the whole venture, because a lot of institutions, they want to have in-country representation. They know it's important. They know being present and being able to answer student and parent and agent questions and manage the market and being able to travel all over the country and meeting people is important. But in order to do that, you need some hefty budgets and you need to spend up front. With this model, we turn it on its head because you don't spend anything until we send you students, and you only pay us for an enrolled student.
Thank you. That was great. Was there anything else you wanted to add?
I think we'll be chatting about a whole bunch of things, and we'll add as we we'll build to the conversation as we go along.
Great, thank you. Sunita, as you know, a huge part of any institution recruiting from source countries is agent management, the strategies they employ, and how they can ensure quality applications. Can you please describe how this model supports that agent management, supports the university or institution with their recruitment strategies, and helps with quality applications and improved conversion rates, importantly? You're on mute. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So the MSM in-country office model has dedicated on-the-ground support for agent recruitment and enrollment. It also supports recruitment strategies in terms of achieving the targets in sales, along with the tuition deposits, thereby which leads into enrollment numbers. We really focus that the conversion from application to tuition deposit is happening. That's a vital piece. And in terms of branding and promotions, this model helps establish the brand image and also create brand awareness for our partner institutions, ensuring to increase brand visibility in order to capture an increased market share. We also provide promotional material support and communications, and of course also use social media platforms to convey the right messaging. A key advantage of this model is again the MSM's agent relationship management and application pre-screening process. The in-country office paves the way for creating and maintaining a positive and productive relationships with agents and counselors. And it also allows for more engagement, more communication with agents regularly. So we keep them updated and also supporting them on presentations, seminars, and spot evaluation sessions, to guide and mentor them to ensure that we get the right quality of applications. Applications are also pre-screened so that they meet the minimum requirements of the program, and we ensure that only complete applications are sent to a partner school. So, this lessens the back and forth of, communicating on incomplete applications or applications that don't meet the program requirements. So we really ensure, to pre-screen and send only complete applications. And of course, by taking advantage of this model, partner schools would also have access, to the research, data reports that MSM publishes, which again, helps providing, to create strategies to increase student enrollment numbers as well. And of course, as the team visits, the countries where MSM has presence, MSM always offers the in-country concierge services. So we really ensure, from end to end, our partner institutions are taken care of. For example, when they come to India or the other countries, where we are located. And yeah, we'll talk more about this. Victoria, you have questions?
Thank you, Sunita. That's great. Ray, I'd like to move to you, if I may. To begin with, could you just tell us a little bit about UWE and why you decided to establish an in-country office? And what were the university's main needs criteria in that regard?
Sure, I'll be pleased to do that. But first of all, I'm going to give you an apology because I'm not in a dress shirt like Erez, because I just moved 2 days ago and it's the only shirt I could find. So at least it's not my vest. So I think everybody can be pleased about that. Anyway, UWE in Bristol itself is a large university, 37,000 students, and just over 20% of those students are international students. And on top of that, we work internationally. My responsibility is for Asia Pacific. And actually in Asia Pacific itself, we've got over 7,000 students on UWE degrees in our partner institutions across Asia. So you might think, with that background in international education, and that background certainly goes back 20 years, why would we actually look to India to a solution such as MSM? And I think actually Erez really said that at the beginning, because for us, we looked at the whole continent across South Asia and thought, how do we scale up our operation quickly? We operated with one manager. It sounds ridiculous now when you actually look back. One manager who we said could look after India, Nepal, they could look after Sri Lanka, they could look after Bhutan. At that time, they were doing Bangladesh as well. One person. And if you think of the scale of population and the need to scale up quickly, we had to look at a whole range of options, and I'll talk a bit about those later on. But MSM provided a very quick, a very realistic, and a very low risk approach to actually developing our work across that part of Asia. And I want to share a bit later on as well, how I feel that's also been quite individual. So yes, we are part of the MSM network, but we're still very much UWE Bristol across those countries. And I'll talk a bit about that later on as well, because I think a lot of people actually get concerned about that. When I've talked to other colleagues in other universities, they've kind of said, well, yes, but we don't want to be MSM in a particular market. We're proud to work with MSM, but we want to be individuals. And so that's something I think we ought to reflect on a bit later on. But that was the real reason. It was we wanted to scale our operation up. We have big operations across Southeast Asia, across China, those parts of Asia Pacific. But India, it was that poor one person. And so that was the real reason for change.
Fantastic, thank you. So did you look at a number of different in-country office models?
We did. We first of all looked at doing what we do across the rest of Asia Pacific, and that is actually appointing our own staff, putting in staff in terms of across the continent. And we looked at what we could afford to do in that context, particularly because we had to think about office infrastructure, support and backup services for those staff. You can't just put people on the ground and not have that kind of support mechanism. So that was one option that we looked at. And of course, we looked at the timescales because we wanted to do that quite quickly. And we looked at the operational costs of doing that, and the fact that we would be outlaying a tremendous amount of money up front. And we didn't know at that time how the market would respond. We then looked at models with what I would call the agent model, where we would actually work collaboratively with an agency and ask if they would house staff and provide us with dedicated staff. The problem with that model, as we felt, would be, of course, that already we would be saying to other agents that they were perhaps less important to us. We were going to give the message that they were not going to be, if you like, trusted in the same way. So that became an issue for us. And the third is we did look, and there are other companies who operate now in the space that MSM operate, and we obviously looked at their models too. And I think a deciding factor was two things. One, to save Suneetha's blushes, and also Sanjay, who's not here today, but who leads MSM, was how honest was the response? What were we promised? And what I will say with MSM, we were never promised the earth. We were promised that certain things would be put in place, that they would be delivered, but there would be never a guarantee that everything would work. It was a very honest, fresh approach like that. Some colleagues offered us, they said, oh, don't worry, we'll have you 2,000 students next week. You know, that kind of approach. And we were very reluctant to be looking at that. So trust was very, very important. And the second was track record. Now, at that time, we were coming from the UK, so MSM's track record was largely with Canadian institutions. But I would say to colleagues on the call today, do have a look at that track record, because it's highly successful. You know, this is not an organisation that hasn't delivered. It has delivered for Canadian institutions for a good period of time. And then, of course, we looked at, were they developing elsewhere? And the MSM story has definitely been one of substantial growth. Now, you can't grow like that if people don't trust your product.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Ray. Just to continue that conversation, can you share what the experience of the Incountry office has been, and what kind of outcomes you've had?
Yeah, of course. Let's talk about the things that have gone really well, and then let's try and be honest and say the things that have been challenges. I think we've overcome all the challenges between us, but I think, you know, it's fair to say to people that there are challenges. But the first thing to say is that MSM committed to us a good number of staff, and in fact that number of staff has grown. We now operate with 10 staff across that part of the region, and we're just talking India, Nepal, Sri Lanka and Bhutan. That's the part that is in our contract. So 10 people, and one of the things that's particularly impressive, and I think Sunita mentioned this, is that that staff is very much divided between the sales team, the team that are out there, you know, working with agents, working with the students. But actually, in my mind, very significant is that team behind the scenes who are going through applications, who are doing the checks, who are actually making sure that the customer, the student and their parents are well looked after. And just giving you an interesting statistic, so far, 52% for 2022, 52% of all applications received by our India office, so in other words, by that team in India, have never been forwarded to our admissions office, which in our case is based in Kuala Lumpur, because the team in India have said, no, they don't meet your requirements. They don't meet the quality standards that you have as a university. And I think that's an important message. You know, obviously, MSM, as they say, they base their product at the end of the day on the actual payment for results. So you would think that MSM would say, let's throw you hundreds and hundreds of students, because the more we throw at you, the better our income. That's not the case. As I've just mentioned, 52% of all applications, MSM have just ruled out themselves before they even come to us. And I think that's great. So we've got infrastructure in India, we've got team support, we've got team leadership, we've got office support. I'll give you an example. Just recently, we wanted lots of information, leaflets and resources actually posted around India and into Nepal. All of that managed, completely managed. When it comes to events, completely handled. I mean, you know, when I look at the job that I do across other parts of the region in being involved in terms of planning events, I don't do any of that. It's all managed logistically, for us. And so they are tremendous backup support. And then also in terms of marketing, we've done many webinars like this for our agents, for students. We were really lucky just before COVID, we had our launch roadshow, which I remember really well. It was a great trip around India and into Nepal, and everything was organized. I mean, I just literally turned up from the flight, and from that moment on, I was catered for the whole trip, including very large audiences. We weren't turning up to venues to see 3 people. You know, we visited agents, we had lots of opportunities to meet with people. So to be fair, I think with everything that we've had, what we were promised has been delivered. The challenges, I said I'd mention a couple of challenges. Obviously, the challenge was that UWE, long history in international education, so we have got our approaches to, you know, actually put across, and we're very keen that our colleagues present themselves as the UWE team. And we want the team in India and Sri Lanka and Nepal to be part of our Asia Pacific team of 70 staff. And, you know, at first, I think I was worried, to be honest, more than anybody else, that would that actually happen? And I can say it has happened. It's been no problem. And where there has been a problem, to be honest, the help and the answer is a WhatsApp message away. So, you know, Sunita, we will meet if there's anything, no problem at all, or Chirag, we would have a quick meeting and we resolve the difficulty. And I think that's the other thing that's really important. MSM is not some faceless organization. You know, it is just a call, just a video call, a WhatsApp message away, and you always get a response. I mean, I've never had a situation where there hasn't been a response. And if I say, oh, do you think we could look at this? It's always kind of looked at and we agree together. We're a partnership. So yes, it's a business model, but it genuinely is a partnership as well. And I think we're good friends as well now. So that's brilliant.
That is absolutely lovely. Thank you, Ray. I really appreciate that. I know, having worked with universities myself, and the recruitment challenges, particularly when you're looking for representation offshore, trust is absolutely, you know, integral to that being a proactive and productive and successful relationship. And so I think that is really what partnership's about, isn't it? And so you're wanting mutual success for MSM and for UE. So thank you for that. I'd like to get into a little bit more technical information now. And Erez, can you talk to us about MSM Unified, which is effectively the ecosystem by which or through which MSM models operate? Can you talk about that and how it works with this particular model?
Sure, of course. So MSM Unified is, as you said, an ecosystem. It's a SaaS-based model, so in the cloud. And it's a platform, and it has essentially 4 stakeholders that it services. The most important of which, and I hate to say it, Ray, because it's not the institution, but it's the students. But I think we'd all agree that they're the most important in this ecosystem that we all work in. Each constituent, each stakeholder, if you may, gets something else out of it. So for students, it's a platform where they can go in, discover programs, discover institutions, discover destinations, see new and exciting information and news stories, insights about destinations that they're considering, and do a search based on their interest, who they are, and what they're interested in. So who they are being predominantly things that would go towards an institution and program's requirement, right? Do they have this IELTS score? Do they have these grades and so forth? So who they are. And then another part, which is also really important, is what they're interested in, what they want to be when they grow up, so to speak. And so it matches these with their interests with programs and institutions that match their criteria. Educational agents are another big stakeholder and beneficiary of the MSM Unified platform. They log in, they work hand in hand with students right beside them, guiding them through the whole process. And they're able to offer alongside with our teams who are Ray, and I think it was kind of you to say, you know, real people. Like we have massive teams that are there to actually help. And so even though we have this platform, it's hybrid because we actually have people that people can talk to, even though there's this tool, which is a SaaS-based platform. So for the agents, they're with the student, they're guiding them, they're using the platform to provide them the student options about what programs and institutions, and providing them additional context about the destinations. And they're also helping them with the end-to-end application process, from the light bulb going off in the head of the student saying, I want to go travel, I want to go see the world, I want to go study somewhere else, to them being on campus. There's an end-to-end component to the platform and to MSM's overall services. And agents also use this to track real-time application status, and use it as a CRM as well. We have strategic partners, such as accommodation providers, insurance providers, financing, and so forth, that are also part of this ecosystem. So we have a marketplace for students. And I actually think there was a good example of us, I believe, and Ray, it may be, I think it was for you actually, where we helped a number of students with accommodations. They required some accommodations, correct me if I'm wrong, because I think it was before my time. I started in December.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. What we had was a huge accommodation issue for international students because of increased numbers. And MSM came in with one of their partners. And that's one of the great things, that MSM have got a range of strategic partners. So they linked us up with another company through MSM, and through that we were able to house a further 70 students. So that was really helpful. Very short-term, quick turnaround and solving that problem. Yeah.
Thanks. So we have that marketplace for students. And then the last and not least, our educational institutional partners. And this is an area where there's still a lot more development work happening, but there's some things that are currently live and some things that are going to be live very shortly. But really, this is a place where HEIs can log in and have full transparency. And what I mean by that is transparency into the funnel, and they'll have transparency from not just, typically the transparency you receive as an institution is when you get the application, that and below. But with this, with the Unified platform, you can actually get visibility above that line to inquiries. And if you have events, you can track event conversion to application, to enrollment, and so forth, and get analytics on certain events, and host marketing materials on the platform itself. And so you can actually have a place where you can keep your assets there, your marketing assets. You have a lot of analytics and data insights on the platform as well from an institutional perspective. And then from a transparency perspective, and this goes throughout the MSM ecosystem, but also the in-country office model, we have to stress we're not an agent. And so what we're doing is we're representing you. And so you have full visibility on which agents are sending you which applications. They're your agents. And so with the platform itself, you can have that visibility as well. So it's a CRM for you as well as an institution. And later on, we're going to be adding payment management systems onto it, and a lot of other, very innovative admissions related services as well to the platform.
Fantastic, thank you. Suneetha, could you talk a little bit about the onboarding process? So an institution has said, yes, we would like to go ahead with an office, and we'd like to open an office in Nepal or in Sri Lanka. What does that look like for them? What are the next steps?
Absolutely. I just started on the mute again. But this is the most exciting phase as the operations now begin. So the onboarding for MSM partner schools is like a 7-step process. And the first step is, of course, the contract signing, and then the HR starts with the recruitment of the dedicated teams. And then, of course, with an introduction to the committee team members from MSM and partner institutions is also made to ensure to cover launch checklist details, setting of training and launch deals, and then, a launch checklist review, which also involves getting, step-by-step details from the partnership, from the partner institution. And then we move ahead, to the training calls, wherein, the team training sessions are made separately for marketing and admission process. So what we ideally do in the launch on the onboarding process is to understand, what are the admission criteria that, our team needs to know, both market sales team and the admissions, so that, we are disseminating the right information. What are the marketing activities that, the partner school has been doing? And, what are the key factors that we can borrow and, take it ahead? And of course, like a meet and greet to understand, the admissions team and the entire international team with whom the MSM team would, be coordinating. And once, we have all these sorted, the next step is the MSM live launch webinar, of course, as it's the pandemic yet. But in normal times, we would actually have partner school visiting us, and we would actually do a face-to-face session where we probably would have anything from close to 60 to 100 educational agents, coming together, and where we would have a great presentation and hold a networking session. But as of now, yes, in the pandemic, we've been, having these launch sessions virtually. And of course, the final step is the regular weekly, bi-weekly calls between our contacts with the partner schools and the MSM dedicated teams. This is to ensure and review the marketing and sales targets, the activities, and any marketing ground information, that we would like to share with the team, and of course, take back information from their end as well.
Fantastic.
So it is pretty much like, a cycle of events which really happens, but it's like, coming together, meeting the new partner, and, ensuring that, we take things forward. But I would say this is the most exciting phase, because the team is, we'd always have a heads up from the business development team that, hey, we're going to have a new school coming up. So this is the time, okay, let's take things forward.
I know you love this part. Your smile just got a whole lot bigger. You love talking about the onboarding of new partners. And I'm presuming that the dedicated staff of the institution can also have an institutional email account. Is that something that you find is very common?
Yes.
So they're identified as the university?
Yes, and these IDs are strictly used only for agent, student, and institutional communication. These are not used for any of MSM's internal communications, and all team members also, are guarded by the MSM compliances and audits. So we ensure that data privacy is taken care of.
Fantastic, thank you. What if an institution already has an in-country office? So as you know, many Australian universities have an office or representatives or staff representatives in India. It's been a very traditional and long-standing market for Australian universities. Are there services those institutions can access that MSM can provide to support their existing in-country staff?
Oh, absolutely. For example, if the institution already has an in-country office, we would recommend that they tap our SaaS-enabled marketplace called MSM Unified, which is an innovative platform for extensive student outreach and sales. MSM offers support in printing and distribution of marketing materials, or maybe even agent management, or even pre-screening of applications. So these are some services which would actually also help the in-country office team. And again, MSM offers, a very transparent agent network, again, full and comprehensive data analytics as well. So the partner school would exactly know that who their agents are, how are they getting their applications. So I think these could be some of the services that existing, schools can use. Like they can get an extended, network of agents who are already vetted. Applications can be pre-screened so that it's easier for the admissions team to, go ahead with offer letters. And of course, for a larger outreach, welcome to use our SaaS-based marketplace called MSM Unified.
Okay, thank you. Erez, I think we've sort of reached the end of our questions. I'm just wondering if you'd be like to summarize what we've discussed about the model, and also speak to anything else in regard to MSM broadly.
Sure. I think there's been a lot of interesting topics and ideas brought up. And one thing I think which is really important to stress is certainly institutions can do this on their own. But sometimes you got to look at economies of scope, and you got to figure out what it's best to do on your own and what it's best to leverage a company that's an expert that has a track record in doing this. So we're a 10-year-old company that I think it's interesting, and Mary, maybe you don't even know this, but I think it's interesting to note. We're a 10-year-old company. We started by doing this very service, the Incountry office. And we built on that. And we built on that through the good work we did and we've continued to do. And that's how we got more contracts and through word of mouth and then active marketing. We're a 10-year-old company that has no debt and no outside investment. Yet we've grown substantially and materially over the years, and we've tripled in headcount last year. And we have over 100 open job recs right now. And the reason I mention that is you can only do that if you're actually meeting partner expectations. Because if you're not, you're simply going to run out of money. You're going to need outside investment. You're going to need debt to grow. We're able to grow because we actually do a good job. Pure and simple. I mean, colloquially said, we do a good job. And when we talk about meeting objectives, and I think Ray, you mentioned this as well, we're not just talking about meeting enrollment numbers. We're talking about having an in-depth conversation with our partners and questioning what does success mean for you? We want to be fully aligned with your success. And that could mean a mix between UG and PG. It could mean diversity in programs. It could mean certain conversion rates. Certainly for Australia, it means handling GTE processes as you need us to, because each university does have their own process for us in certain regards to GTE. So we need to understand what you need done and how you do it, and we will do that. So all these factors come into play, and that's why we have an onboarding which is second to none, because we need to understand and really partner together with you. The other thing I'd say about the economies of scope comment that I made about doing it yourself is doing it yourself has inherent risk. And it has inherent risk. I used to head up, as Victoria said, I used to head up finance teams. And so I've kind of half my brain is thinking in finance terms all the time. And if I was a CFO for an institution, I'd question a couple of things. One, why would we spend money up front for unknown returns in the future when we can have a partner who does that job, does it well, does it professionally, meets enrollment targets, has a proven track record, but we only pay them when the student is on campus and paying their tuition? It de-risks the whole model by doing it that way. And in fact, it typically, and this is the case in most institutions, it's typically using a different budget altogether. It's using your commission budget. And that may not be the same in all cases, but it's an important aspect to this, because in certain cases, it could even free up your existing budget for headcount, for travel, for marketing, to invest in other markets. There could be markets which you see the growth potential in 5 years, and it doesn't really make economic sense for you to invest in them now unless you have the capability through a freed up budget. It gives you a little bit more freedom. That's why institutions choose to work with MSM. So I think the important part is, you mentioned trust before. And anyone that says trust me, that's a big red flag right away. So I'm not going to say trust me, but I will say, look at our track record, have conversations with us. We do believe that your brand is important. All our institutional partners, we respect the goodwill that they've developed over the years, and we respect, most importantly, the student. And if we keep that as the core of what we do, I think our kind of Northern Light, I'm not sure if that actually, I'm in Canada, by the way, so I'm not sure if that's appropriate for Australia, come to think of it, but your Southern Light, your Northern Light, it'll hold you true. So there you go. It'll hold you true. So we hold the student as the most important stakeholder, as I said before. We make sure they're well serviced, and everything else flows from that.
Thank you, Erez. Look, I'm going to open to questions now. And the first one I'm actually going to pose to Ray, because I think it's a very appropriate one for him to respond to. The question is, there is a high risk factor in terms of representing the university's brand and the management of the student database on behalf of the institution. How do we address this? How can an institution be sure their brand is well represented, and who the team members from MSM are, and how they will introduce themselves when representing the university? Ray, can I ask you to speak to that?
Sure. I mean, the first thing to say about all of the staff that came on board through MSM to UWE were all subject to interview with myself on behalf of the university. So literally, when HR are looking for staff within MSM that will be working with UWE, I always have that final say on the appointment. And indeed, I don't just meet one candidate, I meet more than one candidate. So it's a genuine interview process. The second thing is that obviously, as mentioned earlier on, everyone actually becomes members of the UWE team, in that they get a UWE email and they sign their normal data protection regulations. They sign those off as an individual, as well as the company enshrined in the contract with MSM. There's substantial clauses which cover that whole area about data and student data and how that's used. And I think one of the things that was very clearly said earlier on that's really important is MSM are not acting as an agent here. So all of the contracts with all of the agents that we have in India, MSM have brought new agents to our attention, but every contract is with UWE as an institution. So obviously, again, every agent signs our agreements with regard to data protection and so on. So MSM, if you like, almost like the go-between. But I think you'll see, if you decide to think about coming on board, I think you will see, from the contract point of view, from the staff appointment point of view, from every aspect, student data issues are handled really well. And in our case, even from Unify, actually all the data in the end has to be transferred into the UWE portal, because we have our own portal system. And so things do get transferred into that system itself, which obviously is then totally secure to UWE. But definitely from the staff point of view, I guess, if you like, MSM are the payroll provider, they're the managing agent of those staff, but we're very much, it's a partnership in terms of the management of those staff. So as I said earlier, I see them very much as UWE staff, but of course the employer is MSM. And that's one of the things we do have to respect. And just one of the issues that people may pick up, you know, things like the employment contract, the salaries, performance management, any of those issues, I do not get involved in those. So if a colleague who is our manager in India wishes to have those discussions, those discussions are with MSM. So that's slightly off that question, but I think that is quite an important thing to be clear about. It is not my role to actually start joining in the negotiation on the HR side, because as you can see, that would be an area of conflict. You know, we don't want to be playing one side off against the other. So I think that kind of demarcation is very important.
I think it's an excellent point, is to view these staff as your own. They're going to be, you know, communicating with you about the strategy for the market that they're in, what events you want covered, which agents you're working with, you know, are you seeking new agents? So view the staff as your own staff in that market. The comment about linking with your system as well. MSM Unified links perfectly with StudyLink, which is a system that many Australian universities do. So that natural transition of applications is seamless and works very, very well as well. Suneetha, did you also want to touch base on that comment about how the staff represent the university?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Victoria. So when we hire the dedicated team members, they would only promote, you know, the institution that, you know, they represent. So, and as you know, they would carry an official institutional email ID, and they're only talking about the school that they're representing. And even when they do agent sessions, agent-facing sessions, or talking to students, it is never MSM, you know. MSM is at the back end, you know. So it's always that, okay, you know, we are X institution or Y institution. So we really ensure that we are the face of the institution on the grounds that we represent them. And of course, later people would know that, okay, it's MSM supported, but we ensure that, you know, we brand and promote our marketing, our partner institutions. And people carry it very proudly, you know. For example, I mean, they'll probably wear a t-shirt of the school that they represent, or a coffee mug, and people really cling on to that. And I totally, you know, understand with this feeling, because years back when I started out, you know, with my first partner school, you know, the institutions, you know, the coffee mug, the flash drive, you know, this, you're attached to them, you know, it's like mine, it's my institution, you know. Yeah, the pen. So nobody wants to part with it, you know, it's my institution. So that's the excitement and accountability that, you know, we bring in with our teams. And they are indeed very proud, you know, to represent the partner schools.
I think the other thing as well is the fact that there is such frequent engagement and reporting. And so it's very transparent in terms of what that representative is doing, because they are constantly engaged with the university. They're having those frequent meetings, they're providing reports, particularly in Australia when there's such a tremendous requirement and focus on agent management. The institution is, you know, aware at all times what's going on. So if there was anything that was, you know, potentially going to show up about a misrepresentation of any kind, it would appear very quickly, I think. So that's really fantastic. Another
Victoria,
question.
if I may, just
Sure.
one last thing on brand, which I think is really important as well. And Ray, I think you touched upon it, but I just want to make sure it's crystal clear for everyone as well. Again, we're professional organizations, so we understand that brands, institutional brands, are built up over years, decades, sometimes long, you know, many decades. And so we work with you to fully understand your brand guidelines, to work within your brand guidelines. And we also, your local representative is in the market actually acting as a monitor and a protector for your brand, because as you know, when you don't have someone on the ground, representatives all over the country may purport themselves to be a representative when they're not, or use their logo here, there, and everywhere. And so having a representative with MSM 365 days a year actually also protects your brand through this monitoring system that we have as well.
And I think
I'm
that's
very defensive about that.
I think that's acutely important, particularly in markets where the university cannot get to on any frequent basis, you know, an emerging diversity market or some such. We have another question. How are enrollments tracked by MSM? Who would like to take that one on?
Okay, I'll take it, but this probably would just be a partial answer. Of course, we do follow up with our agents, you know, as you know, the time is closer towards, you know, the opening of classes. But again, we get the final list of enrollments from our partner school, you know, as for example, if you are the India subcontinent office or, you know, the African continent office. So depending on the territories that we work in, so the partner schools would actually send us the, you know, the list of enrollments, which we would tally with, you know, the tuition deposits and the database that we maintain. And I think that, and the source of truth is, of course, the list that is provided by our partner schools.
Fantastic.
And at the other end of things, Victoria, I receive a data report from the team every Monday. So every Monday I get an update on the current application status across the territory. When it gets nearer the time, I get all the visa status reports and updates on that. So we're constantly matching that against our own data. And I'm glad to say, you know, there's very rarely the odd difference, but very rarely any great difference. And actually, within India, where in the first year, as we went in, as the market grew substantially, we saw a rise in visa refusals. Very much in working together with MSM, we put into place an action plan, which included, in some cases, suspending some of our own agents. But, you know, we took very great action on that. And visa refusals, because I know people do concern about that, from the territories where we work with MSM is under 0.5%. So, you know, I think that in itself, forget the numbers, that's a pretty successful score, you know, to have.
Ray, can you also therefore share that, you know, this is not just about providing you with applications, that this really is an end-to-end recruitment process right through to visas and students arriving on campus?
It is. It's every step, pre-departure briefings, actually supporting students, you know, where we've had students who in the end couldn't make it to UWE, supporting the refund process. And some of those have been challenging, you know, to actually for our staff to get through. It's literally every aspect. And I'd even go slightly further than that, that we operate with partner institutions, colleges, universities, and the team get engaged in those as well. So they have conversations with those college and partners, as would any UWE member staff. I think that's a really important thing to stress, that the colleagues who work through MSM, through the areas where we work together, you would not be able to tell that they were any different to our colleagues working, say, I don't know, here in Thailand, who work direct to us. And I think that's quite important. And actually at the university end, I don't think if we talk to colleagues across the university about who was employed in India, for instance, they would just say, oh, we've got Jansi, or they would refer to the people because they would be UWE staff. They wouldn't say, oh, we've got MSM. Now, you know, I think that is a strong signal of that collaboration, of that partnership.
Thank you. Erez, can you just talk a little bit about where MSM is globally? Because we do have a global presence, and you know we've got multiple source countries across the globe, but we also have our own staff present in a number of markets. Can you talk a little about that?
I'm most certainly going to miss a number of countries. It's almost like I just won an Oscar and I'm trying to name all of them, and I've run out, the music comes and I'll run out of time. But we're in over 20, we have staff in over 20 countries around the world. We do in-country representation, and the important in over 20 countries in the world. It's important to note that in some regions we do it on a regional basis. So you might have someone with their flag planted in one country, for example, Colombia, or for example, but they might do the broader LATAM region or surrounding countries for that as an example. And so, and sometimes we might have one person, and as Ray mentioned, you might have 10 people. And we grow with the volumes and the needs of the institution. And so it's very dynamic in that way. And we're very quick to look at the analytics and to see what we're seeing in the future and get ahead of the game to be able to hire up before we actually need staff. And if we make a mistake and things are going really well and we need more staff, then we just bring in staff from our other team, like especially for if you have a big intake. So we can actually help because we can bring in staff temporarily if need be. That's not the ideal solution because we like to have dedicated 100% of the time staff, but if need be, we have that option as well. So we do have staff in over 20 countries. We've recruited from over 75 countries around the world. We do send students to the primary markets of Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Canada, and the US, but also other countries where institutions have sought us out and asked for assistance. So we do have some agreements with other countries, other institutions in other countries, but that's more of a bespoke arrangement where they've asked us for help, and so we've helped them.
Thank you. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I think we've covered most.
Victoria, there was one other. I'm not sure. Sorry to interrupt, but I thought. Did you know there was? What do the reporting lines look like for institutions? I think we kind of, Ray, you kind of mentioned that one, I guess, right? In terms of the reporting lines. Not sure if there's anything else you wanted to add to that.
Sure, just to say that I meet with the team on a bi-weekly basis, which I would do with all of the teams. And then I have the manager for the region, who obviously I liaise with on a regular basis. But then outside of that team, I've almost got a sort of an extra, because I can, as I said, pick up the phone to Suneetha or to Chirag or other team members and actually say, look, I am concerned about this. It's kind of outside of the team. So it's quite clear in terms of the staff report to the MSM staff, but they're also reporting to me. They're reporting to me, as I say, we meet fortnightly.
Fantastic, thank you. I think we'll leave it there. I would like to thank all of our attendees. I really hope you found this of value. I am going to type my email address in the chat box. So if anyone would like to reach out to me directly, please do. If you have any more questions, and I'm happy to take that up with you. I'd like to certainly thank our panelists today. Ray, thank you so much for your time, and particularly in the middle of your house move. I hope that hasn't been too arduous for you. We just love your backdrop, so it looks like you're very comfortable.
Yeah, I try to, because it's Australia, I try to pretend that the UK is sunny sometimes.
And we won't mention the cricket, right?
No.
Okay, fine.
Definitely not.
Thank you, Erez. Great to see you as always. And Suneetha, thank you so much for what you've shared with us today. I really appreciate all of your time. I know how busy you are. We have recorded the session, so we will make that available as well. And MSM will continue to run sessions just like this, and certainly numerous think-ins. We love getting into great discussions about hot topics that are happening in the sector around the world. So we will often host some great open discussions about issues and topics. But for now, thank you everyone, and I hope we're able to meet again soon. Take care. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.